you can absolutely strategize and pick the right, places to put your money. However, you're only investing your money for that average return on your investment. And we know what that average is in the industries of real estate and investing in stocks. With franchising, it's completely different. So when you invest money in a franchise, there's not an equivalent to how much cash you put into how much your return is. You could put as little as a very small amount of an investment and your returns could triple or quadruple or be 5 times that much.
Hello, and welcome to the Infinite Financial Freedom Podcast, where we empower you with financial literacy and guide you on your journey to financial freedom. I'm Josh Metal, and I'm here today with Marc and Linda Cayle, who founded FranDestiny and have been empowering franchise owners' dreams for over 25 years. Together, they bring a wealth of insight and knowledge on how to identify franchise opportunities and help franchise owners replace fear with knowledge and confidence. So, Marc, Linda, I'm super excited to have you on the show today. How are you?
Wonderful. Thanks for having us.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the nice introduction.
You're welcome. And, this is an interesting niche. This is an interesting part of the investing entrepreneur world that I don't have a lot of experience with, but I'm very fascinated in. My theory is we all need to create enough passive income to replace our active income. And there's a lot of ways to do that. We can invest in private money notes. We can invest in oil and gas investments that spin off dividends. We can invest in real estate. But this franchise idea is really interesting to me. And so I'm excited to dig into it. Why don't we just start with just a little bit of background? Like, how in the world did you get started in this franchise business? What led you to that point?
So thank you for that question. It was a while ago, 30 years ago. I was involved with a franchise that was just starting out of Milwaukee. And so I became the director of development for that franchise and actually helped the founder develop the entire franchise program.
Cool.
And really, that's how I cut my teeth on franchising. And since then, we were the second consultants to join FranChoice, which is an independent consultant network across the country that helps candidates find franchises to buy. And when people ask us what we do, and we say we help people diversify their income portfolios through franchise ownership. And so beyond that, we did that ourselves. So we walked the talk. We bought a multi-unit franchise in the in-home care agency back in 2004 and grew that, and then had a great exit in 2014 from that, and have done franchise consulting along the way. So we sort of, when I tell people, we sort of stand on all 3 sides of that fence. We're franchisors, multi-unit franchisees, and consultants. So we've been doing it quite a while.
The best teachers are masters themselves that have actually applied the trade, learned a few lessons the hard way, made a few mistakes, and can share that wisdom. So I love that perspective. Linda, how do you describe, like, I kind of just assume that people know what the hell a franchise is. Let's just start me back at kindergarten level. What, in the easiest terms possible, how would you describe the franchise model?
The franchise model is a proven system. Done. It's the easiest thing to describe. And when you want to follow a system or you want to follow a proven model and just plug and play and execute what someone else has already developed in operations and marketing, strategies for retention for employees, and everything that encompasses running a business, but you might not want to reinvent it yourself, because only about, statistics are 15% of entrepreneurs who create models are successful, and more like 90 to 95% of franchisees are successful. So there's a lot of failure in creating it yourself. So the franchise model allows franchisees to be in business for themselves, but they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They have a playbook to follow.
Those numbers are shocking. So you said 90 to 95 success rate on a franchise, which means it's almost idiot proof. No offense, you idiots out there. No, just kidding. It's Friday. I'm in kind of a jovial mood. But what did you say the sole proprietor or the the entrepreneur business without a franchise, what did you say the success rate was?
Somewhere around 15% success rate.
Wow.
So the ones that are successful, that have been able to create a successful business model, and then on top of that, franchise that, rinse and repeat nationwide, is, the leadership has to be really, really strong to be able to achieve that.
Yeah. So in the simplest terms, then it sounds like to me, let me just perception check. The franchise is almost like a recipe, a proven recipe for a business. They tell you you need these ingredients, you add them in this way. And when I mean ingredients, you need employees, you need a location. It probably gives you demographics for where you want to place this business. And many franchises, I think, even kind of coach you like, no, we wouldn't put a location there. This is the location you should be in. Like how, in what ways do they idiot proof that? Because the franchise, because a 95% success rate is extraordinary. How is that possible? What is it that they do? What are the steps or the pieces, the components that make it that likely of success?
Yeah, it's interesting when people ask, well, why would I pay a franchise fee and royalty? Well, I call that success insurance, right? So the franchisors absolutely, if there's a location involved, if there's brick and mortar involved, they have to approve it, right? And they usually have a full real estate team. They have demographic mapping down to, let's say it's in the pet industry. They know how many people have pets, how many pets there are in the territory, what the propensity to spend money on those pets is in that territory. So household income requirements, all sorts of different demographic requirements, so that they have the ability to reduce the risk, right? Yeah. And so nothing is proof, right? But they certainly reduce the risk for going into a market. And so they absolutely have all of those things in place in order to increase the success rate.
And I'll add to that, because Josh, what you just said about the recipe is my phrasing. So when I say to a candidate coming in, I say the playbook is written for you. It's like grandma's recipe. And if grandma says put in a cup of sugar and you're cutting down on sugar and you only want to put a quarter cup, don't do that your first year or year and a half or 2 years. Follow the playbook, follow the recipe exactly, because then you will fall into that 90 to 95% success rate. The ones that don't follow the system end up having some setbacks. And then after a year and a half, you're solid, your business is over that growth phase, go take away some sugar, add some of your own spices then, but at least start to think about cash flowing first and not jeopardizing a proven business model that's given to you and that you just paid for, pretty much.
Yeah.
Why would someone invest in a franchise and then not follow the system? It doesn't
Right.
make any sense to me at all.
Right.
Not if you have
5%.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I mean, I was just thinking, if I was going to pick a location for a pet store, I would pick one that was in close proximity to my home because it was convenient. That doesn't mean that that's where the best demographics are, right? So we have kind of all of our own prejudices or preconceived notions and ideas that have zero foundation in success. And then we go try to build a business on top of that, where you're coming in and saying, look, just plant this in fertile soil. Here's the fertile soil and watch it grow. That makes sense to me why the success rate is so differentiated between the two.
Yep. You nailed it.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of the franchise industry. And my understanding is there's been really some significant changes since the pandemic. Do you guys want to tell us a little bit about that and how things have evolved?
Yeah, well, I really think the pandemic opened up a lot, right? Lifestyle. People are really focusing on a balance between work and life. We actually have brands that are categorized lifestyle brands, literally. Like you can actually have a life while producing a pretty solid return on your investment. And so what franchises have always done, but now they're even doing more since the pandemic, is they're inserting A+ technology, the latest technology, and robust marketing campaigns, plug and play, sometimes call centers, right, in their home office that are that are theirs. It's their own. They don't farm that out. And for that reason, you allow the franchisee to build and grow, but they can actually create a remote management, a remote monitoring type of business model. So you can be on the moon and run your business because all your key performance indicators are being tracked with the technology. They have the conversion rates, they have the attrition rates, they have everything to do to deploy marketing. And honestly, you could do that from anywhere. So being able to be a little bit more mobile, but still working full-time, part-time in your business is achievable. So I think they perfected that even more so since COVID.
Years ago, we never really had to talk about it. We always used to talk about, recession resistant businesses, but now we're talking about Amazon resistant and pandemic resistant businesses, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it's really up to the candidate that's looking for franchises to understand that, it's important to, if you're really concerned about that, choose an essential business. And there's a lot of franchises in that model, in that lane. And so there's a lot of ways to deal with that. Also, what the franchisors are doing is implementing a lot of AI. And so they can have an understanding of what is going to happen before it even happens in most cases. So it's a very interesting play that they're implementing.
Yeah.
I went into a gym. I was on a vacation recently, and the gym's open like 24 hours a day. And you just swipe in with a mobile app. And when you come in, there's a voice that recognizes you and says, "Hey, Josh, good morning." It was like 4 o'clock in the morning or something. "Hey, Josh, good morning. What type of music would you like to listen to?" And I was like, "Holy shit, this is a bold new world. This is wild." I was the only one there, right? And so it was crazy. So that's really kind of exciting.
The owner of that gym is sleeping.
Hey, sleepy. That's right. And cashing checks. That's a beautiful thing. Those are my favorite things.
We're getting ready to go to the beach to go surfing before he figures out his KPIs for the day.
That's right. So cool. It's so cool. Let's talk a little bit. You alluded to COVID proofing or pandemic proofing businesses that are protected from another type of a situation like that. You also mentioned Amazon proofing. And when you mentioned that, I was thinking to myself, there's a lot of retail businesses out there that are feeling pressure from the Amazon effect. So what type of businesses or what type of things can you do to protect yourself from getting put out of business by either the pandemic effect you mentioned or the Amazon effect? Can you give me some examples?
Sure. In the boutique beauty industry, for instance, or boutique fitness, for more clearly, boutique fitness, the pandemic shut down so many of these boutique fitness concepts. And there's a company, an umbrella company, that went to bat for their franchisees. They had over 1,800 locations open during the pandemic and closed none.
Wow.
Reason why was that franchisor was able to go to bat for the franchisees to their landlords and get rent abatements and things like that. And they were also able to pivot and start doing videos, for exercise routines online and over video. And the franchisees were all able to pivot to do that. And most of them hardly lost any members at all during the pandemic.
Right.
Wow.
So without the franchisor saying, this is what you guys should be doing. Oh, and we're going to be producing these videos for you. I mean, it's priceless.
Right. And essential businesses are all different kind of categories. Just like I was talking about how a lifestyle brand is a category, essential brands are categories as well. And we like to call them in our industry recession resistant and recession proof and a pandemic resistant. And I mean, not proof, but resistant. Because nothing's foolproof, right? And but in general, if you need a roof, you're going to have roofing companies come out. I just remember seeing during the pandemic while we were sitting there with our children doing puzzle after puzzle after puzzle, you look out the window, who's out there, right? You have your HVACs, you got your plumbers, you have roofers, you have tree trimmers, and all those essential businesses thrived. Some hair salons, boutique beauty, hair salons absolutely thrived. I'll give you a perfect example of the budget type of hair salons that we might represent versus the high-end salon. You go to a high-end salon and you're spending $150 to $200, sometimes $300 for a haircut, color, whatever it might be.
I'm not.
Mark's saving that money.
Yeah. But a lot of people during the pandemic and during recession, they want to save money. So where are they going for their haircut? They're going for the $12, $20 haircut. And so those franchises thrived. They blossomed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So sometimes you don't know until you know it. But now we know because we've had a history, a track record of being in the industry for 24 years.
And what about retail competition with Amazon? How do you, when you represent a franchisee that wants to buy a retail franchise, how do you guide them, or what are some of the things that a retail business can do to protect itself from the Amazon competition?
Right. Well, right now we know that Amazon is a beast. I mean, I have Amazon deliveries on a daily.
And
and
they're right back there. I'm sure there's boxes at the front door right now.
the worst part of the experience is knocking down those boxes,
That's right. True.
So we have non-traditional retail now. So we don't have traditional retail anymore. Non-traditional retail are your boutique fitness, your boutique beauty, sometimes cooking classes, things like eyelash lounges. We'll have, oh my gosh, we have so many different kinds of, like health and wellness, mental health clinics, or physical therapy clinics. I mean, there's so many non-traditional retail. We actually don't have any retail in our inventory as a result. And for that exact reason, it's a dying breed, right? So we've got to pivot, and that's where we head.
So it might be, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I was going to say there are franchisors that actually have an online presence that if, for instance, let's say a customer goes into the store and they fall in love with whatever product they have and they want to order it online. If they live within the zip code that the franchisee owns and they order online, the franchisee gets part of that revenue.
Fantastic.
So getting online revenue for not doing anything.
Yeah. So it's like you may be selling a product, but it's almost like the body is required to be there, like a fitness facility or a barber or a hairstylist type of a thing. And you may be selling hair products, you may be selling supplements, but you're doing it in an environment where the body is required to be there, kind of a model. Interesting.
And also, there's that experiential nature of the concept itself that if you're just going in to buy a battery, right? That's not an experience. If the franchisors that we're representing are, if you're walking in there to have an experience that you need to be there for. And so there's that component too.
Makes a ton of sense. Okay, got it. Thank you for that. Okay, so, the biggest reason why I wouldn't want to, in my mind, my hurdle in my mind, I'm saying, okay, Josh, why would you not pivot out of a real estate investment into a franchise investment? And the biggest reason is I don't want to buy another job. So walk me through, like, if the average person was to invest in a franchise, I assume that they need to put some time, energy, and attention on it to learn the model, bring in the staff to run it. But what does that arc look like? And is it possible to buy franchises and really remove me as the entrepreneur or investor from working in the business so that I'm just spending my time working on the business? Help me understand that, if you would.
Okay. Well, personally, with our experience is we love people that are in the real estate industry. Maybe you have some Airbnbs and some properties. Maybe you're a house flipper, whatever that might look like. Add franchising as an additional revenue stream, as an additional investment to a passive investment. And so when we look at passive investments, we look at the stock market and we look at real estate, right? And when you're investing in those, you're investing cash and you're hoping for the best economic climate ever, right? And that's all you can do is just hope for the best. There's not a lot of control that you can have with your investments. You can absolutely strategize and pick the right, places to put your money. However, you're only investing your money for that average return on your investment. And we know what that average is in the industries of real estate and investing in stocks. With franchising, it's completely different. So when you invest money in a franchise, there's not an equivalent to how much cash you put into how much your return is. You could put as little as a very small amount of an investment, and your returns could triple or quadruple or be 5 times that much. And the reason is because you're investing two things. You're investing your cash, but you're also investing your skill sets. You're leveraging all of your experience that you have. You can control how high or how low your ceiling is in a franchise. And so we placed a candidate a long time ago, and about 7 years ago, their total investment was $75,000 and they're netting $1 million. So you can see the ratio
Awesome.
between cash to return on investment has nothing to do with how much cash you put in.
And ultimately, you're investing your time and skill sets, and you will be able to get it from working in it to working on it. There are some franchisors that are set up immediately for semi-absentee ownership, and you can put a manager in there. I always tell people, just surround yourself with people that are better at stuff than you are, and put them in the right place, stick them in the right seats, and get out of their way. And that's what we did with our franchise. I mean, it was a 24/7, 365, 3-shift business. And we never even got an after-hours phone call in 10 years. So, if you put the right people in place and keep them happy, that's where the success really sings. And there's plenty of franchises that are set up to do that.
That's awesome. So walk me through, and maybe this is just so all over the board, this is an impossible question. And if so, just tell me, but walk me through, if I was to buy let me give you a real life scenario. My family and I own a retail center in Alpine, Utah. The intersection in front of it is the second busiest intersection in all of Utah. I can't remember the numbers, but it's hundreds of thousands of people. It's a main freeway exit. And the demographics around there are very young. Like the average age is probably 30 years. This is a tech center. They call this Silicon Slopes, kind of like Silicon Valley, but Silicon Slopes because of the mountains.
Love it.
And it brings a highly educated, higher than average pay rate employee and very young demographic straight out of college. So lots of kids, lots of apartments and townhouses going up, just bustling, right? And it's in the heart of Utah. So, the average family has like 6 or 7 kids. You just start making babies when you move here. I don't know what's going on. So something in the water.
All that fresh air.
Yeah, well, I think it was Joseph Smith who said, "This is the place." So I think this is the fertility ground here. Okay, so I've got this retail building. It's in this epic location with tons of traffic. And let's say I had a vacancy in one of those units. What type of business would do really well in that environment? And then give me an idea on an arc. Like, hey, Josh, I think this business would do really well in a highly trafficked, young demographic area. And you would probably need to put this number of hours in for the first 90 days. And then I could see you transitioning to just kind of, managing the team and being the leader. Well, walk me through that. What could that possibly look like?
Well, step one would be, at least from my perspective, what is a complementary business to everything else in that center, right? What would benefit most from the foot traffic that is being generated there, right? So then we start there. Then once you figure out what concept that is and you do the build out, you get it launched, you're really talking about, again, is it semi-absentee? Can you send a manager to the training of the franchisor to begin with? And then you would go with probably just, obviously you want to know what's going on in the business.
Yeah.
And if you find the right person, that arc is short, right? I mean, you really can get that person up and running very, very, very quickly. And what you need to understand is to cross train the employees. So if that key person does leave, you've got a backup that you're not jumping out of your canoe, you know, on
Yeah.
the river in the
Yeah.
middle of the day to go run and figure out what's going on. So those to me are the most important things, is to figure out what the concept should be to begin with, find a semi-absentee business, find the right person, get them trained properly, support them properly, and then off you go. You're right. It's an impossible question to answer because there's so many variables.
Yeah.
But in general, that's sort of where I'm coming from.
And basically, when you look at that, and you look at your target market, every one of our brands has a target market, right? And they know the analytics, they know the foot traffic, they know the buying power, they know the average household income within that demographic. So they're going to know exactly your strip mall and the surrounding radius. They're going to know the average household income and what they spend their money on. So you might have a complementary business to what already is in there. Like Mark said, maybe there's a grocery store in there already. Maybe there's another franchise that might be well known that we all know, which is notoriously good to put this brand, one of our brands, next to that brand. So there's so much to choose from, especially with that demographic, because they're all experiential. Those 30-year-olds, all they want is an experience. They want convenience. And we have brands that fit those attributes. So that gets me excited a lot.
That's great. That's great. Is there a predictive matching model for success? Is there a way to say, based on, who you are and what you're interested in, or what factors would be most predictive of success?
Yeah. So basically, when we bring people through our process, I do a very in-depth 2-hour consultation, Zoom, just like this. And I extract every single attribute that you might have even known that you don't even have, that you didn't know that you had. And I compile that from your strengths, your weaknesses, your skill sets, your background, things that maybe are a strength of yours, but maybe you're burned out. Maybe you've been doing this for 30 years in corporate. You just want a model that takes care of that in the back office. I look at everything from demographics. So I compile a business model. We compile a business model based on those attributes. And then we don't use AI for this because this is a human nature touch. And this is something AI really can't take over, is that human connection. And then we take attribute for attribute by attribute and compare that in parallel to the candidate profile of the brands that we represent for success, because each one of them has characteristics and a candidate profile of what we're supposed to look like. Somebody who's managed a team before, project management, somebody who is people-oriented, no introverts. I want an extrovert, or whatever it is. I want an introvert for this particular brand. So I'll know whatever personality type you have, I have a brand for you, or a handful of brands to investigate.
And ultimately, just because Josh likes to golf doesn't mean Josh should open a golf store, right? I mean, we see it all the time. People like, oh, well, my hobby is XYZ, and I would love to turn that into a business. Instead, we say, why don't we find you a business that gives you the time and money to enjoy your hobby, right?
Yeah.
So this is a constant with what we're dealing with. And again, there's so many variables that we're talking about that it is so important to use a professional. It's like, when you're going to buy a house, you're using a professional to find you that house. It's the same thing here. If you don't use a professional to really dig in to understand where you would fit best to begin with, you're going to be on an island all by yourself, and that's no fun for anyone.
Yeah, makes total Wilson. Yeah, nobody wants to be on an island by themselves. This is such an industry that you need great coaching and leadership and guidance on. Couldn't agree with you more there. All right, let's
call it dating. We call it dating. We were going to go send you on
business dating.
Business dating. You're going to have a bunch of dates with them, 4 to 6. You're going to see if you're going to get married. We might, ditch a few of them. But in the end, the decision are the people that we work with. We just guide them. We're tour guides. We just guide you in the right direction, teach you how to ask the right questions, and hopefully in the end we have a marriage. That's
great. Matchmakers.
Uh-huh.
I love it. All right, well, let's go into a few examples or case studies. I always like to hear success stories. I also like to hear flops because, you know, when I laugh at somebody else's mistakes, it makes me feel better about my own. And so let's give us a few examples, if you would, like, hey, you know, this person launched so-and-so business. Their initial investment of time and dollars was, you know, around this range, and 5 years later or whatever, this is, you know, the kind of yield that they're getting. I'd love to hear a few of those stories if you don't mind.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a flop and I have a success story. The success
Okay, great.
story is a placement that he placed way back when. He was the CEO of his company. He wanted to grow an asset on the side, something he could control. He started off with 1 unit. Fast forward to today, I lost track. He has like 22 to 25 units. In the
Wow.
beginning,
These are individual units or franchises across different. Okay, is that right?
Yep. So he's got 13 of one franchise, 7 of another, and he actually just came back for more because he wants to continue to build out.
What a rock star. Cool.
Yeah, but he did it all while he had his CEO day job. He finally retired in 2017, but he is the epitome of success. We have a lot of success stories like that, but he started off with one because, again, he didn't know what he didn't know until he knew it. And once he knew it, he's like, I want more. And so when he got landlocked with one brand, he bought a complementary brand, which is what we call stacking. So if you have a hair salon, go buy the massage concept. And if you have the roofing company, you might as well own the gutters or, you know, whatever it might be. A flop was, and like I said, that 5 to 10% of failure rate is always, most of the time, operator error. And so the franchise has a playbook. Here's how you launch, here's how you grow, and here's how you scale. And there was one particular individual where there was a pre-launch, and the pre-launch had designated dollars toward marketing and paying your employees for 2 months. Within 2 months, here are your results. And I had a candidate who thought, well, if I do this for 4 months pre-opening campaign, I'm going to get double the memberships. And that's not what happened. The memberships that on average you're supposed to open up with after this launch promotion and your launch date is somewhere around 250 members. Perfect. We're golden. Off to the races we go, start growing. But he opened with 265, not that many more than the 250, but he ate through $118,000 worth of upfront costs. And then he didn't know what to do because he ran out of money. So that's a perfect example of following grandma's recipe. Just follow it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But, you know, that's a perfect example.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite success story beyond the guy that we were just talking about is we actually wound up putting a friend into a business back in Milwaukee. And of course, you're always like, I really hope this works.
We're gonna talk about this for the next 40 years, one way or the other.
And they know everybody in town, kind of thing. And you know, again, Linda said a little while ago, like $75,000 investment, and the wife was like, she was really excited but scared to death. She's like, what if I don't do well? And we're like, well, follow it and you will. And ultimately what happened is she's grown that business to the top in that system, but she's the top in what she does among all of the stuff, all of the companies that do it in the country.
Yeah.
So she wound up to be a rock star, and what did she say to you? You were on the phone with her and she said her biggest fear.
Yes.
It was the coolest thing.
I love this question. I asked her, I said, so what do you know now that you didn't know then when you first started? And she said, I didn't know that I could sell. I can sell. I have sales skills. And I'm like, this is what gets me so excited, because she didn't know that she had these skills. You can hone your skills. I kind of think owning a franchise is like getting your mini MBA, right? You have your coach. They teach you how to read a P&L sheet. They teach you how to sell. If you have those skill sets laying dormant in there, a franchise will pull them out, which is so much fun to watch.
That's beautiful. Yeah, the personal development journey is super cool, I'm sure, from your perspective, to watch people become something that they didn't even know they could become. That's a beautiful thing. So talk to me a little bit about what does the monetization look like? Like, do you mind giving me a ballpark idea? This person that invested 75,000 to start up this franchise, what does her annual income from that franchise look like now?
All right, so basically I would reverse engineer that. So instead of because like I said, your investment doesn't equal your return on investment. It could be much larger than your actual investment. I just reverse engineer that. During the consultation, we ask, what are your financial goals? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? What's your exit plan? If they don't have one, we strategize about what that might look like. Based on their answers, I'll find you a brand that meets your requirements. So it's different for everyone.
Got it.
Ultimately, again, she's hitting it out of the park. So on a $75,000 investment, they're netting like $1 million.
That's fantastic. What a beautiful business they've grown. Congratulations
That's
to
not
them.
everybody.
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course.
Yeah.
I mean,
be everybody.
they are running on all 12 cylinders, and they are absolutely the epitome of perfection in that industry. So
Right.
not everyone's going to get those returns, but it sure
Yeah.
is fun talking about it.
Her attributes,
Totally.
she's a hustler. She will hustle. If you have somebody who's going to wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning and slip into work, and they're not going to grow their business, build relationships, you're not going to end up like her, for sure. I always say, when you investigate a brand, talk to the winners, talk to the losers, talk to the top 10%, talk to the bottom 10%. If you identify with the way the bottom 10% is operating their system, don't buy the brand. Don't move forward. But if you identify with the top 10%, let's go. Like, that's the one for you.
And you're able to do that in your dating process? You can find out about the brand, you can look at the financials, and you can say, okay, I want to talk to these. I want to talk to 2 of your top 10 and, a few on your bottom. And that's all part of the dating process.
Absolutely. So we have a very, very systematic due diligence process that we put our candidates through, and the franchisors are in parallel with that process. And part of that process is validation calls to existing franchisees. And in the federal disclosure document, which is required by the FTC for a franchisor to even sell franchises, there's a list of existing franchisees in the document with their addresses and phone numbers. So you can shoot a dart at that list and call whoever you want. Now, ultimately, we say, okay, if you're in Buffalo, New York, let's find franchisees that are in similar markets. Maybe there's similar lifestyle choices to you and all those kind of things, so that you can speak with someone that has some commonality with you. But ultimately, you can talk to whoever you want.
Yeah, that's great. That's super helpful. All right, let's take a left-hand turn, and based on our time, man, our time went quick today. This may be our last question, and then I'll leave it to you with a closing thought. We talked about the element of somebody moving from a W-2 kind of corporate America role into the entrepreneurial franchise model, and it kind of bringing out their best, that personal development aspect that comes along with it. Let's talk about how you've seen or maybe examples of how bringing, and I think you even mentioned this, Mark, of how bringing kids into the mix, and this can be something that you can bring children into the journey. I mean, I have a fundamental belief that an inheritance isn't primarily around the transfer of money. An inheritance, in my mind, should be a transfer of how you created that money. I believe wealthy people are wealthy not because they have money. They're wealthy because they have the information. And if you pass on the money without the information, they're not going to have that money very long. So speak to that for me, if you would, any experience you've had with that.
Sure. I mean, it's the usual, like, teach someone to fish, right?
Right.
Instead of handing them a fish. And many of the people all of the people that we talk to with children, we always ask, are you doing this to leave a legacy for your kids, or how are you working through this? I was talking to someone the other day. They have a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old. I'm like, sounds like free labor to me.
I love it.
And they absolutely are looking to leave something for their kids, even us. I mean, we have a 20-year-old son who can sell you the shirt that you're wearing while you're wearing it for more than you bought it for.
I love this kid already.
He's the real deal. And youngest employee that Audi ever hired. I mean, he's the real deal. And so we have zero issues with going into a franchise with him eventually when he's ready. I mean, we say, listen, cut your teeth on other people's businesses first.
Sure.
But because he's young, but he is the perfect example of I want to help him. Obviously, he's my son. So we will absolutely have something for him that we do together that he will run with us. And eventually he'll have that business to grow and mature and do everything he wants to with it.
Right. Right now, I'm working with 3 separate candidates. 2 of them are one is a father-daughter, and the other one is a father-son. And
cool.
the parents are entrepreneurial, very successful in their own right, and now they want to bring their child into it too. And then I also have 3 brothers. So there's a lot of family legacy being built that you can pass on to the next. Have your kids work. I mean, if it's an ice cream shop, they're scooping ice cream at first, right? But while they're doing that, they can learn how to read a P&L sheet. Because when you buy a franchise, you get a business coach. When you buy a franchise that we have in our inventory, that business coach meets with you weekly when you launch, then quarterly, and then as much as you want. They go over their P&Ls with you. They educate you. And so you're learning as you go. So if you have kids involved, they can learn not only from you, but not everybody is an entrepreneurial mindset. Not everyone knows how to read a P&L sheet. So if there's a father, son, or a mother, daughter, or whatever it might be, who wants to get involved in a business, but neither of them are, very business minded, but they have great management skills or they have great sales skills. That's what they're looking for, these franchisors. They'll train you how to read a P&L sheet. Then all of a sudden, everyone is upskilled. So
Great.
that's how we look at it.
I couldn't imagine anything more fun than launching a franchise with, your kid at the helm. And as you said, Mark, you can put them in there for free labor and and just watch them grow and learn and be able to help them. But I also like the idea of, you avoid to a certain extent that, hey, mom or dad, you're just bossing me around. No, we're just going to play the playbook together, right? Like the franchise playbook is the playbook, and our job is just to optimize that. So it isn't me, telling you to do something that isn't tested. I love that.
Brilliant. Yes.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. You guys are a wealth of knowledge. Let me leave it to each of you to leave us maybe with a closing thought, something inspirational, or maybe a question I didn't ask, you could put an explanation point on. And then, of course, how can people find you to wrap up here?
All right. Well, I personally, when I categorize franchising, I call it entrepreneurship with the entrepreneur spirit. You've got the entrepreneurs who started. Maybe you're not 100% an entrepreneur because you don't know how to start your own franchise. So go for the entrepreneurship angle and take that route and own a franchise, because that is going to give you the independence and the ability to reap what you sow with your own personal wealth rather than growing someone else's wealth, but without having to reinvent the wheel, basically. And to find us, by the way, our service is free to anyone that we work with. And the reason for that is the franchisors that we represent are under contract and they pay our commissions. And as a result, we're helping them find the perfect matches for them, and the franchise prospective buyer finds the perfect match, and we're the matchmakers. So in order to find us, you just go to our website at FranDestiny.com. And it's FranDestiny.com.
So, and for this particular podcast, we have a special landing page, FranDestiny.com/IFF. So if you're, infinite financial freedom. So FranDestiny.com/IFF. And there's a bunch of information on there about franchising and what we do. And it's easy to get a hold of us that way. But there's also some additional information on franchising in general that people can get so they can at least have the basics.
Right. And one more question we always get to that I forgot to mention is that we do help people nationwide, Canada and Hawaii. So we're not just in one particular part of the country. We handle all of it.
Great. Well, you two are awesome. I sure appreciate you. I actually have some questions for you too, about some ideas that I have. So I'll be in touch with that. But thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing so abundantly. I know this is going to be one of our favorite podcasts.
Wonderful,
Thank
Josh.
you,
Thank you so
Josh.
much. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, thanks for having us, and we welcome calls anytime.